Welcome to the April 21st, 2026 work session of the Mayor and City Council of Hagerstown. The meeting is now called to order. First up on the agenda today is the FY 2027 budget review. Mr. Scott Nicewarner and Michelle Hepburn.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just take a minute real quick to ask if there are any follow-up questions to last week's meeting. I think Brooke and Scott covered some of the overview sections and mostly centered around like property revenue and assessments, as well as the general fund section of the budget book. Okay, so if there's no questions, we'll move forward a little bit. We are still going to spend some more time around the general fund overall, but first, before we do, I want to point out on this memo that we have included in the packet, right? And it's posted. There are some fees that have been proposed to change in the current fiscal year 27 proposed budget. They're all listed here. There is 11 of them. You're going to note pretty much anything that's water and wastewater, they're all being handled separately. There's a separate ordinance and there's a separate process. And I believe that Nancy's already come forth a couple of times and you're looking at changing the water rates and the home methods and the calculations on those. And there's a conversation, I think, later today, this afternoon on the wastewater side. But if you look at numbers 1 through 4, there's a couple other things that are being proposed. And what happens in your budget book, there is an entire section, it's section 8. It's a user fee schedule section. And it has, if you want to flip to it, it has every area and it should encompass most of our service charges. And what we're trying to do is highlight for you so that no one has to like look through there. There's a lot of things that can be adjusted by admin order. That simply means that if we have an increase adjustment within the budget book and the budget is approved, then they can move forward with changing those fees without any additional approval levels needed. But again, only the ones that say admin order, right? So 4 items just to point out: business revolving loan application fee, looking at increasing it. And those fees, those application fees vary right now from $100 to $250, and they're going to go up to $200 to $500 range. Code administration municipal infractions increase from $1,000 to $5,000. That's the max. Residential fence permits from $45 to $50. And forest conservation fee in lieu is going up by less than a penny per square foot. So from 0.402 per square foot to 0.41 per square foot. And again, kind of recapping those, we're going to leave these on the memos going forward just so that it's there. And so if there's any questions on any of them, we can have the departments be present to answer any of those questions. When we looked through all those, we didn't notice anything that was new. So that's the other thing. If there is a new item, we do try to make sure that we incorporate it and have that area come and sit to talk about what it is, but we didn't find anything new. All right, so we are going to talk a lot about the operating side of the general fund last week. We're going to look at the capital side this week. So that is section 7, it's capital improvement program. And that section encompasses every fund, all the capital projects. So the majority of that section is the general fund, but all of the other areas will have their notes in that same place as well for any capital projects. So general fund, electric, water, wastewater, golf, stormwater, property management. For the most part, we're going to focus on the general fund sections of that. So in section 7, I'm going to take just high level, right? On the very first page, there's a chart that just summarizes for us all those funds, right? And total spend that we had for fiscal year 26 budget, where we think we're going to end in fiscal year 26 estimated actual, and then fiscal year 27 budget. So for the general fund, the first line, in 26 budget, we originally thought we were going to spend 17.1, and that's total spend, all funding sources. Now, estimated actual, we think we're going to get about 14.5 million done coming across. And then in the fiscal year 27 budget, another 13.3 million in general fund CIP capital projects. So 13.3. Other funds are listed, but we'll highlight them when we look at doing those specific funds in the next week or two, actually. So on page 15, down the front of the capital improvement project section, we have a lot of little charts, tables, spreadsheets, reports. One of the ones on page 15, this one is one of the ones that I like and I reference all year long. It is projects by funding source. And again, this one's just for the general fund. These reports repeat for the other funds as well. But as you can see, the general fund, the projects by funding source at the top, we've got bond financing, and we do not have anything in the fiscal year 27 budget to be bond funded. Okay. So you can see that fiscal year 27 is a 0. CIP fund balance. You're going to see a total of 2.9 million in all projects, right? Page 15. 2.9 million. And what the CIP fund balance and that encompasses is 1.4 in new projects, and the rest are already approved, or they were projects like the IT projects, the PEG projects. Page 15,
Section 7.
section 7, page 15.
Okay. Mine looks different. Section 7, page 15. Maybe not.
Yeah, looks like that.
This is my 15. Oh, yeah, this one.
Yeah, it is different.
Yeah, hers is on page 17.
Yeah, here's 17.
We'll have to, I'll clean your book when we're done.
Sorry. Actually, it's Donna's.
Well, that's Donna's. Oh, okay.
All right, so I'm on 17.
Okay, so the CIP fund balance, but we have a lot of projects like PEG, right? Where monies and funds and funding sources are put towards the projects that are dedicated just to those projects that we cannot move to others. Or it could be a project that we put the funding for in the current fiscal year 26 budget. Maybe it's something that isn't going to happen or be done and it's going to be delayed and it's going to happen in fiscal year 27. So of that 2.9 million in the CIP fund balance, 1.4 is new CIP fund balance items, and the rest is just delay projects or those projects, like I said, that had restricted funding sources that can't be carried anywhere else. So anytime you see anything that has like the IT, the information technology projects, for the most part, we don't move monies out of their projects anywhere else because of the way that the funding sources are. And then right below it is general fund balance reserves. So 3.8 million. And hopefully you talked about and looked at a chart last week on fund balance reserve that was in the overview section, just so you could see in here of that 3.8 million. Again, a lot of that was previously approved general fund balance reserve money, right, for a lot of these projects. Some was new. And you want, just as a reference point, we segregate that for you on page 8 of section 1. And so of that 3.8, 2.2 had already been previously allocated to projects, and 1.6 was new. And the new 1.6 included additional monies for fire department vehicle, city hall improvements, the renovation that's going to start upstairs on the 4th floor, consolidation of public safety assets. We had had previous money there, but we're finding that between acquisition and design, we're probably going to need to allow more monies there. And last but not least, public safety radios and in-station alerting. Okay, so general fund balance reserve. So those are some key funding sources I always like to stop on. You flip the pages. Now, when you see the projects, go to almost your last page where you see transfers to the CIP general fund. For most of us, that's going to be page 17. I'm guessing Councilmember Bell, it's probably going to be closer to 19 on yours. And the transfers from the general fund are monies that we're moving from our operating side over for capital projects. So all of our ongoing charges for services in fiscal year 27 has to be enough to cover these needs. When you see a project listed,
Michelle, can you say that again? So you're saying from the section that repeat that, what's being transferred?
sure. So when you see the words transfers to the CIP dash general fund, it means it's monies that we are moving over from our operating side. So all of our current charges and our current revenue must cover it, whether that's tax revenue, we don't have grant revenue, whether it's state income tax, anything that is an undepartment specific revenue. So, for instance, if the police department has money that they charge for security services and that's in their operating side, we would not transfer that. This would just, the funding here would be the unassigned items, right? And we
What's
do.
left? Are you saying what's left from that will be transferred?
So, no, this would be things that wouldn't be assigned to a specific department. So
Okay.
nothing that a specific department charges.
Okay, gotcha.
So again, that's about 2.9 million. And if we look, again, I'm gonna just pick on one because I can tell you. If you look at the third one down, it says fire department vehicle, and it has a 45-C0010, right? And you see 1.3. You're like, oh, Michelle, the fire department vehicle, you're budgeting 1.3. No, that project, if we want to see that project in its entirety and we'll move forward and look at it, this is only the portion that we're funding from the general fund. So it doesn't give you this report that I like and use so much, doesn't give you the entire project at a glance, but what it does give you is a glance per funding source. Just key for me, but not always for others. But again, 2.9 million is what we are including in our fiscal year 27 budget. And when we started the budget and the end of January with my deficit, the request was from departments for 9.5 million to be included here as a transfer from the general fund, which I could not make happen in balance to general fund, right? Which has to be in order for us to present it. So as Scott mentioned and highlighted, I think in his message at the very beginning, one of the things that we have continued to do is I've either found alternate funding sources, which I try really hard to do for that difference of 6.5 million, and or the items get deferred and pushed out to a future year. Okay, now I'm going to take a minute to stop on page 22. And again, Councilmember Bell, that's probably going to be closer to page 24 for you. Projects by department. This, and again, this is just a general fund. So at the very top of these reports, you're going to see the fund names. So you see general, right? You're going to see these same things for all the other funds. But again, today's topic, we're focusing on a general fund. This lists it for you by department. So if somebody, and I know in the past I've had several council members who preferred this one because you could see, oh, engineering, here's all of engineering, and they've got a total of 2.6 million in that 13.3 million in the beginning I said. 2.6 is within engineering area and under that responsibility. And then fire, we'll just go down one more. You see fire is at 5.8. This is the project in its entirety. Again, it's here by the department in its entirety, not like when the funding sources where it could be broke. I'm going to hit on like maybe 4 of the higher dollar impacted items and projects in the general fund because want to go through and make sure everybody is comfortable. This is a large section. It's got a lot of good reports. And again, reports are in the front. And then behind it, on every report, you see a project number. And the ones in the general fund, I'll start with a 45 dash. So then what you're going to see is for that, everything that was in the general fund that started with a 45, we're going to have the project detail sheets, and they are going to be in numerical order. So if you ever want to know details on one and you know the project number, right, then you can simply start looking and you'll know numerically how close you are without maybe going page by page by page. I'm going to take us to page 47. It's C0010. It's the fire department vehicle replacements. We actually talked about it twice. I'm sorry, I'm not picking on fire for everybody here in the audience. But what I did was, again, I looked at the ones that were $1 million or more, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to like walk through these. So on this sheet, again, every single project sheet will look like this. You'll have a picture. You'll have a brief description, and then within your description, it should include not just the current fiscal year 27, but an additional 4 years. So in our CIP section, which I probably should have led with, and for all of you, I am very sorry because I was remiss in mentioning that at the beginning, but it's a 5-year look, right? So it's fiscal year 27 through fiscal year 31. And so in the description, we should have some of that breakout for you. And as you can see here for fiscal year 27, we have reserve engine, we have a new mobile vent unit, and we've got another reserve engine. And then when you come below, there'll be a section for justification. If we have a year where there is a bond issue, in the justification or budget impact section, which isn't shown on this, because we didn't have a bond issue, we will include the language that tells you how much we anticipate or estimate those bond repayments are going to be, just so that you have it for reference. But in this case, in fiscal year 27, you'll see then the expenditures are just shy of 3.1, and then the different funding sources. And again, so we looked at that report, right? Transfers from the general fund, 1.3 million. CIP fund balance, 1.3 million. General fund balance reserves, 400,000 to make up, because however much you have in expenditures, we must have the same amount in the funding sources in the project side for the capital equipment. Okay, we're going to jump over a page and we're going to look at pavement preservation program. So this is a program in the engineering department. It's one that typically has a higher dollar amount, right, on our spend. It's one that isn't new and exciting. It's here year after year after year. We hardly ever talk about it anymore. But the funding for it all comes from our highway user revenues. And so the important piece here is some of you will remember years where we had hardly any money to do, because our highway user revenue was cut drastically, right? So we've been very thankful and very fortunate in the last several years, probably the last 5, that has not been the case. We've been assured through the legislation process that our money for fiscal year 27 was still good, so we should total about $2 million. And that's very good and very important, because when we do not have highway user revenue at that level, if something were to happen and it were to drop, this project and all the infrastructure, all the stuff that we do on the resurfacing and the filling in, right? It's hard when you don't have substantial money. One of the other things to note, gas and diesel prices, everybody probably has seen at the pump, but our pavement preservation program is driven by an asphalt index, and it too has risen substantially. So while 1.3 may have covered, I don't put Jim on the spot, he may have thought it was going to cover 10 areas. Maybe now that same 1.3 is only going to cover 8. Again, using that as an example, I just want everybody to be aware. So what happens with the highway user revenue and the projects that we have there, whatever money we have is how much we do. Okay. And again,
Highway user revenue is 1.745 million.
And we have
This is 1.3.
Right. We have that within the capital side, and we included a small amount in the operating side. And that is for those costs that are eligible. So we had projects in the past that we could have used highway user revenue for. We didn't have enough of highway user dollars. We didn't have enough of general fund dollars to put over. So we bond issue. And when we bond issue a project that's eligible for this, you can use highway user dollars to help pay that back. So the monies that's in the general fund reflect that. It's a very small dollar amount, though. We try to leave everything we can in the capital. Okay, then I'm going to flip to page 90. Wait a minute, sorry.
90 what?
97. I might need my readers for some of this font. It's getting small. It's either getting smaller or my eyes are getting older. I'm not sure which. So this one is project number C0687, and it's called Consolidation of Public Safety Assets. Buyer's really going to think I am picking on them. So this, again, I'm only pointing out the ones that are over $1 million. We didn't have anything like the field house or anything that really stood out. There's years where I need to draw specific attention to a lot, but this is more getting you accustomed to what's in here, the look of the field, where the bigger dollar impacts are going, and just so that you have a comfort level, right? Because if there is any project you wish to talk about, we certainly can. But this consolidation of public safety assets, basically, we're just looking to acquire land and have some design costs. It's no secret, our fire administration group is in a building that we are currently renting. We won't be able, the rent doesn't last, the lease there doesn't last forever, but not just it. We need to look at conveniently for response times. New station areas. So this money is in here so that we have the monies to start that. At the point that we would have land and design finished, in order to build a new building, we would need a substantial grant and or lots of a bond issue, right? But again, same type of information. You're going to see at the top, you're going to see a name, who in the area responsible. You're going to see a description that's going to cover multiple years. Then you're going to see justification. And then hopefully at the bottom, every year for every expense, whatever the expense total is, and this for fiscal year 27, it's $2 million. You're going to see funding sources, $2 million. So if you find one where the expense and the funding source is different, let us know. Okay, now I'm going to go to page 101 because really the biggest story I think in the general fund budget, what's new and different. And this is project C0739. So project C0739, and they'll be, again, in numerical order. For the first time in, well, this specific system hasn't been done since fiscal year 10. So to do a new ERP system and invest in our information technology, in our computer and our software is a big step for the city. So we have money in here. Again, it was one of the larger ones, so I wanted to point it out. In the general fund side, on the operations, it was also something that I probably would have stopped to make sure we pointed out, and I think, pretty sure I heard Brooke mention it on the maintenance side, right? Because as we are looking to enhance things, both within information, several within information technology, both with this brand new ERP platform. We're also looking at cybersecurity and our GIS software that's going to go hand in hand with it. But along with all of that is all of our operating, our maintenance, and our subscription fees. So that's on the operating side, and that's definitely increasing. That's kind of an overview. General fund, CIP. Was there any questions, or did somebody want to look at anything else before we move on to look at general fund financial projections? Okay, so we're going to move backwards to section 6. And in the financial projection section, just like I mentioned in the CIP, all funds are here. But we're going to focus on the general fund tonight. Much like in the CIP, this is the only other section of the book that doesn't just have a single year of estimates, right? It has 5 years. I'm going to go a little out of order. You're going to say, Michelle, quit jumping around. But it's important. So in the financial projections section, in section 6, again, on the general fund side, I want to take a moment to stop us on page 5. And page 5 is detail on our property tax revenue. And again, this section is laid out. There's information, there's assumptions in the beginning, there's summary pages, and then behind the summary pages are detailed. So one of the lines for the revenue off of the summary page, I'm going to take us to this page because I want to look at it on one more. I know a lot of time was spent talking about property tax revenue, where we think we are, where we're headed. But I wanted to point out, if you take a look at this page in this section, you're going to see, so at the bottom half is our pilots, right? And our pilots are fairly level year over year, not much of an increase. So most of my focus, I'm going to have you focus on the top half where you see total property tax increase. And I want you to keep in mind a couple of things. Fiscal year 24 was year 1, first year of our reassessment. Middle of the book. Fiscal year 27 proposed budget is also year 1 of our triennial reassessment. Go to the right. Fiscal year 30 is year 1. The reason that I'm focusing on leaping you through the 3 years is in the past, it was really easy when you looked at the revenue to see a constant trend year over year over year. Year 1, we had 2 or 3 back to back where they were negatives. Year 1, meaning what we had in assessed the year priors decreased, and you'd see big drops. It used to be year 2 and year 3, you'd see slight increases. Telling you this because in the past 2 cycles, it's kind of changed, right? With the change in the market coming out of COVID, prices of housing. So year 1, we've been seeing higher bumps and trends. Year 2 is still typically a little bit higher than year 1. Again, because we have a phase, right? We have a cap on what can be done on the residential side. But I wanted to point these out. I want you to see the future periods and the future growth that I've already got in here. So in fiscal year 28, got it bumped up to 54 million. And these are in millions, so don't be alarmed. Fiscal year 27, and again, the middle of the page, total property tax. Current fiscal year 27 proposed budget at just 47.5 million, and I'm bumping it to 53.5 in my projections. And why? A couple of things. We have a couple of larger projects coming on board. We have New Cold, right? The warehouse that's being built over a 45 Oak Ridge Drive. I think the address on that one is 45. But again, we're going to start to see personal property increases, which have not increased or changed substantially in years. Typically, they've been a very small percentage of the overall total property tax. But again, bumping and trying to include all of that. You'll see the bump at the very, very top line where I've got real estate, and it's going up 9.3. And again, I think we talked about that we anticipated in the budget. Have you flip the page, right? So that's a look at the revenues, and is our city administrator pointed out, can't just focus on fiscal year 27. We gotta be looking at the future and what's happening. So I don't have in these scenarios in my estimates any increase in the tax rate. Doesn't mean that that's not going to happen when we come back to the table. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying that it's not. Just saying for estimating and projecting out, that is not included, right? I'm trying to include growth in the market, growth in what we're seeing in these warehouses. We have some high dollar parcels that are currently in their 10-year enterprise zone, right? So try to take a look at it to see who and where stuff would start to fall off. Unfortunately, probably not within the first 5-year cycle. But try to consider those things in here to give it as best as a guess as you can. Because it's hard to do 1 year out, which is fiscal year 27. But when you're trying to guess 5 years out, it's even more difficult.
And just to try to make it a little bit more clear, when it comes to what I talked about, when it comes to a structural deficit, where you're not bringing in enough as to what you're putting out, right? And that there's three ways to fix that. One is increase taxes. Two is to decrease expenses. Three is to expand revenue growth, right? Or a combination of all three. It is not because we are writing checks that we can't cash or that we are in debt to the point where we can't pay our bills. Has nothing to do with it. The challenge we have as staff is to present you options to where we can establish a revenue growth like what Michelle is talking about and not have to raise taxes and not have to cut expenses, to where that structural deficit will shrink or go away eventually over time. It has nothing to do with the amount of debt that we have. In fact, our debt out of $1 of tax revenue is 4 cents. Our debt policy is extremely strong and it's followed meticulously. So that is not it. And anyone that would like any explanation on how that works, let us know. We're happy to answer that question.
Thank you for pointing that out.
You're welcome.
I am pretty, I don't want to say strict. I am very emphatic when it comes to bond issues with our
Right.
departments. You liked that word, didn't you? Much to their detriment, right? Because there's a lot of things that got deferred that there's good arguments. A bond issue would cover some of that. But where we are with our current debt and our policy and what we just did, I said, no, we're
The
not going
bond
to do that
issues are
in
for
another, we're
one
not going to do
time,
that in
right.
27.
One-time expenses.
Yes.
They are not to be part of a recurring operation,
Much
which
like,
is what gets a lot of folks in trouble.
much like fund balance reserves.
That's right.
I'm very, yes. This is the most lenient I've been on fund balance reserves. So on page 6 in section 6, no dollars here. But again, this is the one that is going to give you a good 25-year look, right? This is what the assessed base was. And again, keep in mind, so let's just, because this is the bigger picture and how I have to keep it in mind and how I look at the trends. Towards the bottom of the page, it's highlighted. It says proposed fiscal year 26/27 for fiscal year 27. That's year 1. Go up a couple lines where you see actual fiscal year 23/24, where it says all. That was also a year 1. Just so that you can see, in fiscal year 24 in year 1, our actual trend, our actual increase over the prior year in assessed value growth was 7.2%. At the time we would have got our notice, right? At the time we did that budget, SStat did not anticipate a 7.2% growth. The only reason why I felt okay, not good, but for fiscal year 27 to, according to the trends and everything that we were seeing, bump to 9.3, even though the constant yield notice said 2.2. But again, we put all this information on here. It's really good information. You got accessible base. You got the tax rate. So if somebody says, how many times did you change tax rates over the last 25 years? You can see it right here. That middle column, real estate tax rate, right? It's only been a handful of times. And then you can see the total dollars and then change into that.
And there are ways to expand that accessible base, which would be the preferred way to generate revenue through annexation, economic development, new construction, rehabbing blighted properties. That's how you take that 9.3 and it goes higher, because you're going to have a higher accessible base from which to tax off of.
Right. So for those trends, right, and to follow along with exactly what we're saying, you'll see fiscal year 27 in the accessible base, in the market value, 9.3% come down 1. Fiscal year 28, I have it estimated at 11.4. Again, knowing that's year 2. Michelle, that's really high. Okay. But go back up to the last year 2, which was fiscal year 25. we actually saw 11.1. Again, knowing that you've got phase-ins that are going to happen and knowing that I specifically looked at bumping up, right? Bumping up for those warehouses that should start to come online. So again, didn't go crazy high, didn't go crazy low. Try to take a middle of the road approach. I try to look at these trends when I'm doing the out year projections. I've got, again, as I mentioned, the growth coming from market and accessible base growth. Okay, so that's on the revenue side. And we spend so much time in the general fund talking taxes because, you know, it's the largest percent of our tax, it's the largest percent of our revenue that we have. One of the few things that as a municipality that we can not necessarily control, but that we have some influence over, right? All right, let's look at expenses. And so we talk about property revenue because it's the largest. I'm going to do the details. Page 9. This is also one of my favorites in this book. And this is on the expense side. And again, just the general fund. And this is looking at salaries, wages, and benefits. Again, largest share of the revenues in the general fund is property tax and assessed values. Largest share by far on the expenses is all in salaries, wages, and benefits. So the top half of this section is going to focus on the wages, salaries, overtime. So in fiscal year 27, you'll see that it's at 31.6 million. And then in the out years, based on the percentage increases that we were seeing, left increases into the future years. So fiscal year 28 at just right under 33 million. You can see from the details on here what is regular and full-time versus there is a line, I just want to point it out. So under base wages at the top, about halfway down, you see something that says temporary and seasonal. That line will reflect our part-timers, anybody that's temporary, anybody that's seasonal. So you can see when you look here, the dollar impact of that staff compared to full-time staff, which is above. Going back to in the prior section, in the overview section on the staffing schedule, we included full-time positions by area and part-time. So again, just wanted you to make sure you knew that you could see this at all times in the general fund. And then come down under additional wages, you'll see overtime. So 2.5 million for fiscal year 27. And again, that's just in the general fund. So 29 million in base wages, 2.5 in overtime, gets to a total of just shy of 31.6 million. Then on the benefits side, this is one of the reasons I like this because it gives you so much information, right? You can see pretty much every single employer paid benefit, anything that we're paying for. Sick pay on termination, the two big ones at the top, pension, police, and fire at 2.6 million. And as a reminder, police and fire pension expense is set on base wages. Right underneath that is the pension for the state of Maryland, 1.6 million. That rate is, again, a percentage of wages, base wages, and it is set and established by the state of Maryland every single year. So we have to do whatever they say, right? Whatever that percent is. Switch, flip to the next page. You don't have to. It's 13.5%. 13.52% is the employer cost for the state of Maryland. And then for the police and fire, the city contributes 16%. Okay, so back over on the other page, you can see the big areas, right? Workers' comp, no surprise, in the middle of the page, health insurance. At the very bottom, we separate out the retiree cost. So you can see it costs just about 1.9 million in the general fund only, right? That's just in the general fund. 1.9 million for the retirees. And again, each fund is responsible. So if we have somebody who was here and they worked in the light department and they retired, the light fund, the electric fund would bear the cost of those retiree insurances, and you would not see that reflected here. This is just for those that have retired in the general fund. Okay, this is a lot of information, and I know I'm cramming it in. Probably going too fast, too slow. All right, so come back to page 3. Remember I said I was going to jump around on you? Page 3 starts the general fund projections, and on this page is all about the revenues, and it gives you that same look, right? We got actual information, we got where we think, we got current year, we got fiscal year 27 budget, and 4 potential out years. Going to draw your eyes to one that says needed revenue source, and when you see in fiscal year 28, it's at 8.5 million. I don't want to say that this is a crystal ball. I will say if we pull out the book from last year and look at the number, it was a really high number. And keep in mind, this number is where it goes back to Scott's prior comments. If nothing changes, and this point next January, and everybody is asked for everything that we think, and the revenue is close, right? I'm going to need, Scott's going to need, your director sitting behind me are going to need to find a way to overcome this 8.5, whether that's additional revenue, new revenue source, which it's very hard to do a new revenue source in the state of Maryland as a municipality, or cut expenses. We have put this number in the book. It's been in here for several years. Some years we focus more than others. Some people like to see it and know it. Again, the caveat that yes, grain of salt, right? I'm not going to say that that's a very good prediction of fiscal year 28. Try our best based on the current trends. But I will tell you that past history has shown me that next January, I am probably going to be looking at something really close to that when I start at a minimum.
And again, that's where I made the comment a couple weeks ago that it's one of those things where we've always, you look at that number and you think, well, we got 10 months to worry, to deal with that, or Michelle will find it, or we'll find ways to cut. That has got to stop. Or we'll raise taxes. That's got to stop. And that's where I said we will be coming back to you. We've already started actually developing strategies for you to consider that we'll take that 8.5 and decrease it structurally instead of having to go in and cut expenses or raise revenues, but generate it through revenue growth and structural changes.
So again,
And we've been pretty close, as long as I can remember, on that projection too.
we have. And again, fiscal year 27, it's balanced. It's balanced with no tax rate increase. There's no big changes other than we're concentrating and shifting to actually look on our IT infrastructure side, doing things that we have to, right? There's no getting around cybersecurity, and it's not cheap. There's no getting around an office platform that's not cheap. There's no getting around upgrading our ERP system at 16, 17 years. There's really nothing new or crazy or anything that just stands out. So trying to take the time to make sure that you know where all this information is so you can see what we're working with, what we're anticipating. And then if you have specific questions, please don't hesitate. But I think for the most part, that's it for the general fund. Unless anybody has questions. Again, we'll still be coming back in the following weeks. We'll still have a public hearing. We will still be voting, right? We'll intro and do adoption of ordinances in the month of May for both the budget and the tax rate. Because as a reminder, we must set a tax rate every single year. If we don't get it voted and approved in time, we don't tax start the year. I know we have on here to start in the other section to look at CDBG and economic redevelopment. I can do that, or I know I don't want to go over time, and I know I crammed a lot of information. Your preference.
I think we're already over right now, so.
Keep going.
No.
Okay. So when we come back, we'll start with CDBG and Economic Redevelopment Fund. Probably spend more time on CDBG than Economic Redevelopment just because there's a little bit more activity in the CDBG fund. And then we will be switching from there to the enterprise fund side. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And again, you look through here, anything that comes to your mind, that you're not clear on, or you have suggestions on, do not hesitate to either get with Michelle or myself. We'll help you out, and we'll bring it to the table next week, if we need to. Okay?
Michelle, can I meet with you sometime next week? I'll shoot you an email.
Okay, next up, we have our preliminary agenda review. Next week, we'll have the call to order, our invocation, pledge to the flag. We'll have our announcements. Rules of procedure is effective November 18th, 2025. Use of cell phones during meetings is restricted. All correspondence for distribution to elected officials should be provided to city clerk and should include a copy for the city clerk for inclusion in the official record. Our meeting schedule for May 5th, 2026 is a work session at 4 p.m. May 12th, 2026 is a work session at 4 p.m. May 12th, 2026 is a public hearing at 7 p.m., which is our FY 27 property tax rate and our FY 27 budget and our water and wastewater rates. May 19th, 2026 is a work session at 4 p.m. and May 26th, 2026 is a regular session at 1 p.m. We'll have two appointments, one to the Planning Commission and one to Hagerstown Housing Authority. Our guests next week are the If I Were Mayor essay contest winners from Paramount Elementary School students. We'll have citizen comments. Again, 30 minutes are allotted for citizen comments, 3 minutes for each person. You must sign up 24 hours in advance, and it has to be items germane to Hagerstown city business. We'll have our minutes for March 3rd, March 10th, March 17th, and March 24th of 2026. On our consent agenda, we'll have first, under community engagement, we'll have open container exemptions and road closures on June 5th, 2026 and June 27th, 2026 events. Under engineering, Northern Avenue curb and sidewalk improvements, Concrete Central LLC, Hagerstown, Maryland, $164,846. Neighborhood Park Development, Antietam Creek Stream Access, Excavating Associates, Ellerslie, Maryland, $342,913. New Total Station Surveying Equipment, Leica Geosystems Incorporated, Alpharetta, Georgia, $37,728.86. Hamilton Run Pedestrian Bridge, Bridge Brothers Incorporated, Pickens, South Carolina, $295,990. Golf Cart Path Construction, Beachy Companies, New Market, Maryland, $151,650. Reinstallation of Rise Sculpture near Hagerstown Cultural Trail, Adam Curtis, Imesville, Maryland, $29,250. Stage construction at Wheaton Park, NLH Corporation, New Market, Maryland, $259,422. Under fire, PPE, gear extractors and dryers, LN Curtis, Walnut Creek, California, $47,897.26. Under information technology, we have Microsoft 356 monthly to annual license conversion, Winslow Technology Group, Waltham, Massachusetts, $167,484.80.
Which was 167.
Yeah, tell me about it. Consulting service for new ERP system, KOA Hills Consulting LLC, Reno, Nevada, $35,150. Then Teletime, Gemini interface for workday change order, and Teletime Systems Corporated, Santa Ana, California, $11,699. GIS Managed Cloud Services Implementation, ROK Technologies, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, $90,000. GS Crime Scene Dashboarding Implementation, ESRI Incorporated, Redlands, California, $26,780. Cybersecurity Audit and Intune Implementation, Winslow Technology Group, Waltham, Massachusetts, $47,500. Under Police, Patrol and Narcotic Detection, K9, Tri-State K9 Services, Warren, Ohio, $15,000. Under Utility, Light Consulting Services, Cost of Service and Retail Rates, GDS Associates Incorporated, Marietta, Georgia, $100,000. Consulting Services, Wholesale Power and Energy Marketing Monitoring, GDS Associates Incorporated, Marietta, Georgia, $50,000. Distribution Line Transformers, United Utility Supply, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, $163,316. Vegetation Management, Exelum Tree Experts LLC, Norfolk, Virginia, $75,000. HVAC system replacement, MS Johnson Company, Hagerstown, Maryland, $43,625. And under water and wastewater, we have water and wastewater rate model update, new gen strategies and solutions, Annapolis, Maryland, $24,850. There is no unfinished business. New business will have an introduction of an ordinance for rezoning of Trolley Drive and Amherst Road, introduction of an ordinance rezoning of Evergreen Property, Eastern Boulevard, approval of annexation plan, Klein Farm, introduction of a resolution, annexation of Klein Farm, approval of a resolution, accept offer of dedication for Trolley Drive and Corboy Drive, approval of a resolution, national settlement agreement, 6 remnant defendants, approval of a resolution easement agreement with Bowen Investing LLC, wall mural, and rescinding prior resolution and easement agreement dated March 24th, 2026. Approval of a resolution, approval to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Hub City Chapter National Railway Historical Society Incorporated for Locomotive 202. Approval of on-call plumbing services contract May 1st, 2026 through April 30th, 2027. Approval of Invest Hagerstown program update, approval of the guidelines and application form for Bright Start Child Care Grant Program, approval to suspend acceptance of new property renovation applications to the Partners in Economic Progress Program, approval of a letter of clarification for Lorridge zoning, and approval of an application to Appalachian Regional Commission direct funding requests for uncommitted FY 2026. And we'll have our city administrator comments, mayor and council comments, and we'll adjourn. Next up, we have Mr. Jim Bender for the city transportation priorities letter to DOT.
Good afternoon. So every year, the Department of Transportation reaches out to counties and municipalities across the state and asks them for their local transportation priorities. And what they do with those is they compile them and they use them to complete what they call the Consolidated Transportation Plan, or CTP. That's kind of their guiding document for the next 5 to 7 years on where they're going to spend money on transportation projects in the state. So we do this every year. The city submits a letter in April, and then usually in October, the Secretary of Transportation will actually go on a tour and visit all of the counties and hear direct presentations from the municipalities on what their priorities are. The priorities that we submitted last year are very similar to the ones that I put together for this year. And just run through highlighting a couple of them. Obviously, I think that Interstate 81, completing the widening of 81 from basically the whole way through Maryland to the Pennsylvania line it seems like it's everyone's top priority. It is funded. The Phase 2 is funded. They split it into 2 sections, Phase 2A and 2B, that would take it from Williamsport and bring it up to Halfway Boulevard. And then the last 2 phases would get it up to Pennsylvania. So that's being designed right now. The last that I heard is construction is probably toward the end of 2027 when it would start, or maybe in 28. So that is moving ahead. We always make a plug to maintain our highway user revenue. As Michelle pointed out, it's very important to us to get that funding so we can keep paving our streets and rebuilding alleys. What I did add this year was the topic that I brought up earlier, the pedestrian safety plan that MDOT is working on now. And as part of that plan, they want to remove parking in downtown Hagerstown from one side of Franklin and Washington Street. I felt it was important to mention that again in this transportation priority letter, just to make sure that they understand that we have some concerns about that proposal. See where that goes.
Thank
There have been some past studies that recommended other improvements in downtown Hagerstown. We want to thank them for that and ask them to move forward on those projects. Park Circle railroad crossings, there actually is some movement. You'll see a traffic advisory probably at the end of this week or early next week. CSX let us know that they're going to be coming in and doing some repairs to all these railroad crossings in town. It's not a full reconstruction, but they're going to be replacing the cross ties under the rail. So hopefully, especially Walnut Street and Potomac Street, those crossings are in poor condition. We're hoping that by having them do that, maybe it'll be a little bit better. Eastern Boulevard, the county is continuing to work on plans to extend Eastern Boulevard. Next phase would be from Jefferson Boulevard up to Security Road. They're hoping that that's going to go to construction in the fall. It's been delayed a couple times, but I think that they're on schedule now for that. And there are various issues with, along the Route 40 corridor, pedestrian safety issues that are somewhat tied to that other study, but there are some separate things that are going on. Really, we just want to have MDOT keep a focus on, the streets that they have responsibility for here in town. We want to make sure that they're keeping an eye on them and trying to upgrade them and keep them in good condition. So that's really what I put together. If the council has other specific concerns or priorities, you can certainly add those into the letter.
Like the Mark Train expansion,
Yep.
you did not have that in there, I
I
noticed.
did not, but we can put
Last
that
year, I
back
think
in.
you might have put that in.
I had it in last year and I can add it back in
Maybe
again.
we should continue. to-
The March train extension, we did have it last year. It's in the, yeah. Okay, I can add that back in.
I appreciate that.
Actually, it is, I didn't highlight it in the memo, but the draft letter actually has it in there.
Anything else on that, Council? You want to add? Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, next up, same Jim Bender, Columbia Gas Cross-Board CCTV inspection.
Right. So this is also a program that has been done in the past. Columbia Gas has a program. There was a period of time in the, I'd say the late 1990s, early 2000s, when they did not have as robust a safety program on their own. And there were some cases where they would install new gas mains and they would use boring equipment, to shoot a line without trenching it. They would shoot lines underground, to get where they needed to go. And sometimes when they did those underground borings, they would bore right through a sanitary sewer line or a storm drain. And nobody ever checked on it. They never knew that that had happened. And the concern is that if the city gets a complaint or a concern that someone's sewer line is clogged, the city may send their forces out with our high-pressure jetting equipment to try to clear that sewer line. And it's happened before in other places where that jetting actually ruptured the gas main. And so now you've got this gas filling up the sewer and causing a potential safety hazard. So Columbia Gas has a program where they're going around at their cost to run CCTV cameras through our storm drains and our sanitary sewers, looking for any places where they might have accidentally bored through them. So that's what their program is about. This is probably the last year that they're going to be doing that in Hagerstown, at least for the foreseeable future. And the reason I'm bringing that is not just for awareness, but as part of their program, they ask us to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So when they're doing the CCTV investigation, they will let the city look at those videos if we want to, and we're actually planning on looking at them so that we can see the condition of our storm drains. They just don't want us to release those videos to a third party without their permission. So really, that's what the NDA is about. And so that really is the ask today. If the council is okay with it, we would execute that non-disclosure agreement with Columbia.
Good.
I'm sorry.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, and reinstallation of the rise sculpture.
Right. So when Meredith Park was constructed, a portion of the cultural trail had to be relocated. And there was also at least one piece of sculpture that had been installed along the trail that had to be moved, and that was the rise sculpture. It's you remember, it's the orange metal frames that used to be very close to the former car wash on Baltimore Street, right there on that part of the trail. That part of the trail has all been relocated because of the stadium construction. We've had the Rise sculpture in storage, trying to find a new location to put it back. And I think we finally have located a space that it could go. It's on Housing Authority property, actually close to the mural of unusual size and probably right across from the Moeller Sustained Wind sculpture that's out there. Had discussions with Sean Griffith from the Housing Authority, and they are okay with that proposed location. When the sculpture was originally moved, there was a memorandum of understanding with the Maryland Stadium Authority that they would pay to remove the sculpture and then pay to reinstall it. Now that had a cap on it. It was a $50,000 cap by the agreement. We have just enough money between what we've already spent to remove the sculpture and now the estimate to reinstall it. We have just enough of that money to do it. The city is probably going to have to chip in a little bit of our own money for I think there's 3 or 4 little foundation pads, concrete pads that we need to pour to set the sculpture back down on. But if the council is okay with that location and would like to move ahead, we have to do a couple things. One is we need to get a formal easement agreement with the Housing Authority so that we can put the sculpture back there. We need to confirm with the artist that he's good to go. And then eventually we would request reimbursement from the Stadium Authority for those extra costs for the reinstallation. So really, I'm just here to make sure that the council is okay with that proposed location, and then we can work on these other things as we go.
Yes.
Council, everybody good? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Next up, we have our discussion for wastewater rate model update. Nancy?
That's okay, thank you. I'm not sure which one you want this. Okay, so I'm gonna kick this off real quick. And I just want to mention a couple of things. The current wastewater rates are one tier. Just a one tier, one size fits all. And then we have the fixed fees based on meters, the water meter size. I also want to mention too that currently we have inside, outside, and joint. And this new rate model, the joint that we have is outside joint customers. This new rate includes an inside joint customer. And you may recall from when we worked on the JSSA update, we needed to add inside joint customers, Hager's Meadow subdivision, it's inside city limits. The sanitary sewer will go through city infrastructure into the county system. So that inside joint covers the difference in cost for our from our inside rate to the county's wholesale rate. And that way, no customers are supplementing any other customers. So that's why that rate is in there. And there are a couple other subdivisions that will be coming on board. We'll actually be bringing the JSSA amendment to the mayor and council with an amendment adding some of McCleary Hill and new subdivision we expect to come on board just west of the Western Maryland Parkway. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike and Connor, and I'll let them talk about the alternative that was requested.
Yes, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Connor Turkis. Thank you for having me. As Nancy said, today we're proposing the sewer rate design alternative. In a quick overview, the current rate design right now is monthly or quarterly fixed fees that vary by meter size for inside, outside, and current joint customers, and a universal single-tier volumetric usage fee that varies, of course, inside, outside, or joint. All customers under the current rate design, if this was to remain in place, would see similar bill percent increases from 2 to 4%. The alternative that we're presenting here today maintains the same fixed fee structure, one that varies by meter size, monthly or quarterly, for inside, outside, and joint customers, but with the added inside joint customer. The usage fees now move to a 4-tier inclining block rate with cutoffs that are the same as the proposed water rate design that we proposed last month. So the first tier is from 0 to 9,000, second tier is from 9 to 18,000, third tier is from 18 to 36,000, fourth tier is anything over 36,000. Currently on the sewer system, residential and non-residential classes don't exist, and this will remain for the alternative one, and it's a universal 4-tier inclining block. With this, the majority of residential customers will see no wastewater bill increase or even a wastewater bill decrease due to the tiering of the variable rates. However, large non-residential customers will see a larger wastewater bill percentage increase compared to the 2 to 4% increase due to the inclining block structure. So this table right here shows the current rates for inside city customers. These are quarterly rates. And then the alternative projections for the next 5 years. As you can see, the quarterly fixed fees go up by about 3% each year. And then down below, the current rate is $7.83 per 1,000 gallons. However, this is tiered out. So customers that are in the first 2 tiers will actually see a volumetric rate decrease, as you can see. And then customers that are in the 3rd tier and 4th tier would see a higher rate increase than 3% compared to the current rate design.
Yeah, I would add, on the water side, we were looking at, for the first year is the implementation year, but it's an overall 5% increase in revenue. The individual rate increases, as we discussed, will vary. The same thing is true for wastewater, except the overall wastewater revenue increases 3%.
And then this slide is similar to the previous one, except for outside city customers, maintaining the current fixed fee structure. And customers in the first 2 tiers will see a volumetric rate decrease, and then customers in tiers 3 and 4 would see the volumetric rate increase at a larger rate. This next table is the new proposed inside joint fee customers. They do not have a rate currently because they're about to come onto the system. They will maintain a quarterly fixed fee that varies by meter size that is presented here, and quarterly usage fees that are roughly 30% higher than the inside city customers. And again, this is to make up the difference for collecting the wastewater and the county's wholesale rate.
And if you would want to compare them to the actual inside rates, that's the first table in your packet. So for example, inside customer utilizing 100% of the city's sanitary sewer system, tier 1 is $571, and inside joint using the city's collection system and the county's wastewater treatment plant, that first tier is $7.38 for comparison.
And this next table is the 5-year projections for the outside joint customers. These customers currently exist in the system and have a rate design. And again, we are splitting the volumetric rate into 4 tiers with about 3% increases each year. Follows the same logic where the first 2 tiers would see a slight bill decrease and then volumetric rate decrease, and then the 3rd and 4th tiers would see a larger increase.
So I'll stop here for a second. If there's any questions, otherwise we can go on to the next slide. We always say is customers don't really care what their rate's going to be. They want to know what their bill's going to be. But this slide shows typical customer bills. So the first example being a typical residential bill. So residential quarterly inside, this is a single family using roughly 150 gallons per day or 13,500 gallons per quarter. The majority of your residential customers are going to have a 5/8-inch meter, so that's what we're using here. Right now, they're paying about $138. That would go down to $117. So there'd be a roughly $20 decrease. Alternatively, if we look at a large non-residential customer, so someone using roughly 5,000 gallons per day, which is 450,000 gallons per quarter, and this is a typical customer with a 1.5-inch meter, their bill would go up roughly, well, it's a large bill, $3,600 to $4,500, so roughly $890, and that's a 24% increase. Same thing with the other non-residential monthly inside customers. So some of your customers are served monthly, some of your large commercial. They're using 750,000 gallons per month, and they're on a 4-inch, so a really large meter. They would see a roughly $1,600 increase or a 26% increase. And then this is just a comparison to some surrounding municipalities. So this again is looking at that typical residential customer, a small meter size, 5/8-inch, 3/4-inch, using 13,500 gallons. And if you look, the darker green is for the city. So you can see the inside customers at the bottom there. And so with the alternative, you'll actually be underneath your current bill, so it actually decrease. Same thing with the outside, where you'd be going from, for the Hagerstown outside customers, they'd be going from the second largest to being down around the average. And then alternatively, the next slide is for that non-residential customer. Here, as Connor mentioned, they're going to see a larger increase for their volumetric use. So they'll, instead of being in the lower, they'll actually be a higher bill, as you would expect with tiers. So with that, any questions?
Can you explain again briefly the connection between the joint categories in these two tables?
Yeah. The joint inside is a new customer class. Hager's Meadows will be the first group of customers to come online. They will go through the city's collection system into the county's sewer, and then transferred into the Hopewell Interceptor sewer to the county wastewater treatment
So
plant.
where do they fall on these two charts?
They're not explicitly on there, but yeah, we could.
Like, which dark line would they be?
They would be in between the inside and the outside.
Yeah, we can provide that number. It's not on this table.
Right, I feel like what I'm getting here on these two tables are two very specific customer classifications. But there are 4 customer classifications,
We will add that to
2 of
it.
which aren't shown on here. Is that, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, because for me, because it's new, I would want to have some understanding, because I don't know that I have that in my own mind at the moment. So they're on city lines for the collection system,
For the inside, yes,
but then they go to a county system for treatment.
right.
So do we bill them solely as a city customer, or do they get 2 bills?
We bill them solely as a city customer, but the county bills us through a master meter.
Right, they're going to tell you what that number is.
It's the wholesale, the county
fine.
wholesale rate, yeah. So, yes. And that is the only new customer classification we have. The outside joint has existed for quite some time.
Which means Greenberry Hills is probably an example, right? Where they're on county collection lines, but they come to the city
Yes. Yes.
treatment plant.
The joint sewer service area, like out, well, a lot of Mogginsville just came off, but, out to the north is where most of those customers
So-
are.
And so even though that's an existing classification, they're not shown in one of these dark lines on the sheet.
They're slightly less than the Hagerstown outside, than our outside customer. The rates are slightly less, but we'll add those two customer
Okay.
classifications to this table and get it to you.
So the in-city going to county plant is going to be somewhere between these two lines, and
Yes,
the outside city going to
It's gonna be a little
going to
higher.
the city plant
it's going to be
is
between
between these
these.
two lines.
That's
Right?
correct.
But the crux or the largest impact to any of the customer classifications is going to be to that outside city non-residential customer that is using or producing a large volume of daily flow in collections and treatment into the city system.
I ran some numbers. So once a customer hits, assuming everybody's on the same meter size, about 45,000 gallons, then that's where it starts to creep up. Remember the last time I had my little sticky note? Well, I put it in a table for you this time. So if you guys would want to pass this around.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who would be one of those large customers. Like, I'm assuming Meredith is probably an example of that.
Yeah. Meritus would be an example. MAC would be an example. Even MAC is our customer and they're not joint, so they're outside, but they're not in the joint service. So the table that you have in front of you kind of puts it into perspective because one size fits all. And if you'll remember from our previous discussion, is these customers are real. They're sitting around this table. And so the first table is just looking at a wastewater bill comparison. The second table is the water bill comparison that was previously provided, and the third table is the combined. So you can see once you hit the 45,000 gallons at the wastewater, you can see that it increases. You're going to see an increase in that. You can also kind of see the break point between the tiers where the savings fluctuates a little bit. But you can see then on the combined bills with the 4 tiers, looking at the 4-tier system, assuming everybody is on a residential 5/8 or 3/4 inch meter, you can see that all customers for water and wastewater combined would see a overall decrease in their bills, looking at between 4,500 gallons per quarter and 45,000 gallons per quarter. And our city administrator remembers which one he is, I'm sure. Yep.
Who's using 45,000?
Well,
One guess.
I think that, I mean, for me, that's me. For me, the takeaway are these two things. If somebody looks at this sheet, yeah, I don't use it, but there are some names of specific people that do. Is when you go over to the right, the drastic difference once you get above that 13,000. In other words, like, once you start getting above that, and that's an average household of 150 gallons a day, an average of 3 people, 3 to 4 people. I mean, that's what that is. So anytime you go above that, you see a market difference start to occur. And then the second is obviously that under this proposal, that sort of no matter where you fall, you're going to see some marginal decrease. And again, I go back to my statement last month when we looked at the water side. Folks that may, so if we proceed in this direction, and customers that may be impacted differently, and see an increase, the assumption would be that, well, something, has changed in a manner that is not fair to that customer base. That's making the assumption that what existed before was being fairly applied to all customer classes. Which, again, it's my position that it hasn't been. You know, as a customer who, as shown here, pays a pretty, you know, hefty bill, comparatively to your average residential user, you know, I was impacted in a way that your non-residential customer classification has not been impacted. So I think that for me, is important to, you know, the position that we take if we head in the direction of the rate structure as presented.
One of the things I also, just as a reminder, that I mentioned when we talked about water, it also impacts wastewater, is that with changes in fire code and the fire line meters, for customers that do not use water at all through that larger meter on a fire domestic meter, we are working with those customers and setting up a second fire line account, setting up a second account that's a fire line account, and so that their fixed fee for their monthly or quarterly bill essentially goes down. So, you know, we are working with those. So even some of those larger customers that are in the 40, 50,000 gallons per day that have a larger meter, but no water goes through that 4 or 6 inch meter, we will work with those customers. Also understanding that once a year they do a fire line, they have to do a fire flow test, and
Right.
we look to see that in one billing cycle. So, you know, those customers that fall into that category that really do not use the fire line side of that meter, you know, they'll see a savings on that fixed fee.
This is probably a dumb question. Are there any residential structures that, like, in other words, once you reach a certain size, is there something that's required to be put in that's different than what a sprinkled, you know, because you have to sprinkle new residential structures? I'm just curious if there's anything that says, you know, once a structure reaches, somebody wants to build a 7,000 square foot home, you know what I mean? Do they have to put in something different? I don't know that. I'm looking at you and asking that question.
I would think they would. I don't know specifically. If they need more than 35 gallons per minute, they would have to go to a 1 inch or 1.5 inch meter to get that. But I don't know what fire code would require for that many, you know, square footage.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm just curious.
Yeah, mostly what we rarely see anything larger than, we don't put in anything smaller than a 3/4 inch meter with a 1 inch service line. And so far that has met the needs of all of the new construction. On a rare occasion, we do have a customer that wants a larger meter. They might have a pool, they might have an irrigation system, and they don't want to, they want the water right here, right now. So we do have a handful of customers that will put in a 1 inch or 1.5 inch meter for residential purposes.
Okay.
So what I need to know moving forward is whether you want to, we'll provide the updated chart for you, the bar graph, and whether or not you want to move forward with the 4-tier system and water and wastewater essentially be assessed using the same tiers, of course, just different costs. So I need to know if you want to move forward in that direction or you want to status quo.
So is this alternative that you're proposing, and I'm kind of going to this sheet now.
There's a supplemental slide. You can go
Well,
over it.
I guess my question is, are we still going to hit the same mark?
They're revenue neutral.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's what, so that's the important part for me.
Yeah.
Is that they're, you know, as fair as we can possibly make it, as consistent with the water as it can be, and as revenue neutral as, you know,
Overall,
as
it's
the
a 3,
direction we're headed.
overall, it's a 3% revenue increase for wastewater, and overall, it's a 5% revenue increase for water. In regardless of which structure you went with, that would remain the same.
Okay.
And I would say, so, just so it's clearly stated here, that for the 5-year rate plan, it looks at a 3% revenue increase for wastewater for the 5-year period. And for water, it looks at, the 5-year period looks at an overall 5% revenue increase. If you were to do the calculation looking at the individual dollar amount in the tiers, you're not going to get exactly 5% because what we're looking at is a 5% revenue, and then the tiers are built based on that 5% revenue. You don't just add 5% to the tiers.
But only the first year is where the adjustments happen. After that, it should be the same increase.
Right.
Across the board.
Is that initial hit?
It's a 1-year adjustment.
So if, that's the direction that I need and that my staff needs to, that we need, which way we want to go. We have it for water. And then we also talked last time that our goal is for all bills rendered on or after July 1st. If we're not comfortable with that because it requires a fair amount of work getting there, then it would be all bills rendered on and after October 1st. We meet again later this week, just to kind of get our arms a little bit better around that to see what date looks more reasonable. But it would either be July 1st or October 1st because we don't want any customer to pay higher rate in like August or September because of the quarterly. So, and I don't know which it's going to be yet. We're kind of leaning towards October because I do not want to risk rushing it out the door and potentially having any erroneous bills going out. But we'll know more on Thursday morning when we meet. So.
I think that the last point that I have, and I'm trying to figure it out in my head a little, is this new classification of the city line going to the county plant, right? So I'm trying to wrap my brain around the politics of that and the fee structure of that, because it is a bit of a new component
It is.
of this, and I'm trying to think through the attributes of our annexation policy, and then your customer base. You have developments with pre-annexation agreements, things like that, and let's just be real honest here. We may have we may have large non-residential customers that experience this change as we apply this rate structure that may appeal to the disposition of the county body to lobby on their behalf, for city reconsideration. You know what I mean? And I'm trying not to put those customers that we have that are going to be in city going to the county plant as experiencing, I don't know what the right word is. I don't know what the diplomatic word is. You know what I mean? Sort of this tit for tat of saying, oh, well, you've impacted this customer base that are our, customers that we're trying to lobby or appeal on behalf of. You know what I mean? And so we're going to adjust the rates for your customers coming to us, and whatever we need to do to sort of like limit that nonsense, I think is the plainest I can be about it. Then I think the better for those customers. I think that it's imperative that we sit down in some manner with the county staff on this and sort of say, okay, because water is different, right? Water, we are the provider. Water here, you sort of have two governmental entities providing this utility service in sort of two halves of the growth area. And we're trying to do it in a way that where you send it is the best direction for it simply to go.
Correct. And
And so I think for me, I just want to make sure as you know, as I realize that the sort of west of city area is going to continue to grow and annex and maybe non-annex in different cases and run through that area. But we're just going to have to figure out a way that says, okay, here's why we're doing this. Here's what it costs to operate our respective systems. They are not apples and apples. You know what I mean? And we have to respect that it's going to be apples and oranges between us, but that, you know, that we not try and make it otherwise for those purposes.
right now, the tool that we're using is the Joint Sewer Service Area Agreement. And that JSSA incorporates both scenarios. It originally only incorporated outside customers going through the county system and then into the city. We amended it a year or two ago for Hager's Meadows. We will be bringing another amendment the city and the county's working on to add McCleary Hill because it was never formalized. And then there's a subdivision, like I said, just west of Western Maryland Parkway, close to where the cemetery is. And so that will be incorporated into that agreement as well. So that is the tool that we currently, I'm going to say that both bodies currently use. And I can tell you that from an operations standpoint, whether it be me and my staff or the county's water quality division staff, we do not move forward with site plan approvals or anything else until both bodies have agreed on that, you know, where the wastewater is going to go. And, you know, and how it's going to get there and that sort of thing. But that is the tool that we currently use, and it does require concurrence from both bodies. And right now, I'm working on the JSSA amendment because it's for inside. If it was outside customers, the county would, and the county's legal staff would write it. In that agreement, it does include the parcels, the meets and bounds description of the parcels. It includes how they're going to be billed and who is responsible for not billing just the user fees, but also the connection fees and the benefit fees and so forth. So all of that is defined in that JSSA agreement. So thoughts on the new tier system? Do you want us to move forward with the 4 tiers that were presented today?
That's my preference.
And everybody?
One person.
Yeah, okay. So we are scheduled, I believe on May 7th, or I believe for the public hearing. So we'll have the ordinance, the introduction ordinance ready for both water and wastewater. And we'll be ready for the hearing for both water and wastewater. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Matt Ross with the Appalachian Regional Commission, direct funding request for uncommitted FY 2026.
Good afternoon. This is a request for funds that were uncommitted for the fiscal year of 2026 from the Appalachian Regional Commission. I think if you guys remember a couple weeks ago, I was here talking about funds for from the Appalachian Regional Commission for 2027. We talked about transmission line upgrades, comp plan renewal, and then there was another project that escapes me at the moment. But This is a separate request, but basically what it is funds from last year that were not committed to projects like the ones we requested a couple weeks ago. Basically, we need to do a comprehensive plan, and last time we did a comprehensive plan, in 2018, it was done in-house. We are looking to have it source out to a contractor, as it's pretty technical, and to do 2 in a row is not advisable. So we're going to request $150,000 from Appalachian Regional Commission, and we are estimating that we will have to match $150,000. Utilities has informed us that $120,000 can be provided, as the comp plan does involve a significant portion of the plan addresses utilities. The $30,000 remaining would need to be allocated from the general fund.
Council, you good with that?
I'm good with that.
Good? Good. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
Next up, we have Eric Dyke and Kay Osmer, explain the Founders Day proclamation.
Good afternoon. Talking about all those projects and numbers, we're here to talk about something a little more fun and personal for the city, actually. I have with me Kay from our Recreation Department. Kay focuses a lot more on our historical side of recreation. She's very much involved in the Hager House, Train Museum, that sort of thing. And if you recall, last year, we had a Jonathan Hager Week, in which was to be a small program, but turned into a week of events and a bunch of other things. And Kay was absolutely instrumental, along with some other staff that we have from Recreation, involved in that. And so during that week, we found out more information about the city's founder, Jonathan Hager. And so we're here to talk about establishing a Founders Day, not just for this year, but a continuation of that. We're not looking for a new federal holiday or anything like that, but
If you want to do that,
I mean, if you want to do that, that's good. But anyway, I'll turn it over to Kay and she'll explain, how we got to this point and what we're asking for.
Thank you, Eric. So as he mentioned, this past November in 2025, we celebrated the 250th anniversary of Jonathan Hager's death. This year, we are celebrating the semi-quincentennial of America's founding, the Declaration of Independence, and there's a lot of events going on across the country celebrating that significant year. One of the mysteries we were still trying to answer about Jonathan Hager was more information about his origins and his life before he immigrated to colonial America. Over the winter, after our event, our staff at the Hager House was approached by a gentleman named Klaus Hein of Keedysville. He is a German himself and was aware of German sources that are not available here in America or easily available online that we had not come across yet. With his help, receiving copies of these sources, his translations and transcriptions, we were able to find 2 books that we believe connect our Jonathan Hager to his origins in Germany. So the first one is actually more of a biographical story called Jonathan, Starting a New Life is the English translation. This was actually published back in 2009. She did a lot of research in the German archives and was able to find a birth certificate or really a baptismal record that records a birth date. So we believe we have found our founder's place of origin, birthplace, family name, and where he was originally born. So that information is detailed in the attachment. So according to the genealogical record, he would have been Johann Welten Jonathan Hager at birth, named after his godfather, in May 3rd, 1714 in the town of Schlechtenboden, which is in Wittgenstein, Germany, today's present Christiansegg, Germany. We believe his parents to be Anna Dorothea Bald and Peter Hager. And underneath that, you can see the siblings would have been David Hager, who we were aware of, and this family record also accounts for 3 sisters. So most of this research was reviewed and connected through lots of rabbit holes from our Hager House staff, Matthew and Forrest Penrod. They both were working overtime this winter to double check their sources and find lots of connections. So we have multiple ways to kind of track the location, the place, relatives, professions that we believe very confidently that this is our Jonathan Hager. So his official baptismal record, I have a copy of the German version on the second page of the attachment, as well as the transcription and translation. So in that record, he's listed as the second son. Godfather was Valentin Bald, and godmother Katerina Elizabeth Boetker. He was named Johann Velton Jonathan, born May 3rd, 1714. So I also included another book that mentions our Jonathan Hager, that speaks about German immigrants to colonial America in the 18th and 19th centuries, hoping for a better life. Immigration from Wittgenstein, that tells more stories about our Jonathan Hager. So anyway, we wanted to come and officially present these findings to Mayor and Council. We had a lot of success with Jonathan Hager Week. We had heard talk that people wanted to make it more of an annual event. And well, this was all while we were working on our research. And I said, hold on, we might actually have a better date than his death date to celebrate his anniversary. So we would like to formally recognize his birthday, May 3rd, 1714, as our official Founders Day. We have started a new living history event at the Hager House. The last 2 years have been in June, so we would kind of formally move that event to the first weekend of May and do a Living History Day at the Hager House. That would be kind of simultaneously going on with Hager Fest going forward, and be a great way to celebrate the town and our history for hopefully another 250 years. So anyway, I wanted to present all this information and give you an update. If y'all have any questions or would like an update on our visitor center progress, I'd be happy to answer questions.
So we have a proclamation that could be read tonight or some other
Yep.
events or whenever you
Oh,
want
I
to.
also will plug, so we did our Founders Footsteps walking tour. This was part of our Hager Week progress last year. We will be offering guided tours, two advertised public events. One will be on his birthday, May 3rd. So if anyone would like to go online and register, we should have that open by the end of this week. Or if you would like to schedule a private tour with a family or group member, we can do private tours where we walk you through downtown Hagerstown, sharing all of this information as well. So we have that going on May 3rd, our first guided walking tour.
Good job. Thank you for
I just was going to congratulate you guys on all the research.
That's what I was gonna say.
And then I did want to ask, do you guys have like any contracts with any of like the local city schools for field trips? Because that would be a very interesting.
We don't have any official contracts. So for the most part, Parks and Recreation has had a longstanding policy that we don't charge for educational tours. So to make the cost as low as possible. So we're pretty flexible when it comes to scheduling things, but it definitely depends on cost for busing kids and what their schedules look like. So it fluctuates year to year. It's definitely decreased since COVID. We used to have a lot more school tours, but hopefully this year with the 250th and a lot of new information, our upcoming visitor center project, it's renewed a lot of interest in the site. And so we're hoping that will increase, but no formal contract or anything.
I enjoyed last year's event, that was fun, so.
Yes.
They do a great job. They do a great job. And Hager House is, we're fortunate to have the founding fathers, one of his original properties. You know, it's located in City Park. We're currently working on the Visitor Center Museum, which is a separate building. If you recall, we got a $100,000 grant to help rebuild that museum. That project of initial renovation of the 600 square feet is coming to an end. It's almost finished. We haven't heard on the second grant, which is an ARC grant of $150,000 to help us then finish it out, which is put the displays in and that sort of thing. We're hoping to hear from them soon, and hopefully that's a positive, and then we can finish out that project. But Kay and the staff and Matt and Forrest have done a fantastic job of keeping that history alive. And we're currently open on weekends?
Yes, so this year we're open Sundays again, so we'll be open Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays now, noon to 4. We do have our Living History event scheduled this year for June 6th. We'll be doing Living History, of course, celebrating the America 250th. We'll also be doing more official service for the Liberty Tree that is being planted in City Park this Saturday, which is an ancestral tree from Annapolis. So we welcome you to come out to that. We should have the visitor center space open so you can see what that phase 1 of the grant accomplished. But phase 2 is the installation of the new exhibit. So we're still waiting on confirmation of funding for that. But yeah, we appreciate all the support y'all have given to the Hager House over the last couple of years, and we're excited to bring all this to the public. We are planning an official press release, and we have Patriot tours scheduled at the Jonathan Hager House, basically Memorial Day through July 4th. So if you want to learn about Jonathan Hager, the Patriot, as well as any of this new information about his German origins, we invite you out to the Hager House. Good job. Thank you for your time tonight. I'll leave these up here if anyone would like more walking tour guides.
Yeah, I gave a couple of those out yesterday.
Is it still where you have to register? Oh, because it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, but we have one more question.
Is it still to where you have to register to go? Like it's not, you can just walk in, right?
Yes, so the Hager House is still set up as a drop-in tour experience. So we operate right now hours on the tours on the hour. So we open at 10. So first tour would be at 10 o'clock. Last tour would start at 3 p.m. The guided walking tours are right now kind of advised to be pre-registered, so we know how many people to anticipate if we're going to have 5 people versus 30 people. But on a standard weekend, it is drop-in. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have our stakeholder discussion update. I will turn it over to Councilwoman Burnett. You want to also, like, for people that are listening, don't understand or know about what our stakeholder meetings are?
Yes. Okay. So back in October 2025, the mayor and Delegate Schindler and I and Scott proposed to have a stakeholders meeting to invite community partners in a room to discuss key issues that we all are experiencing and all are aware of. The purpose of this meeting is to come up with solutions and to come up with responsible parties for each of these solutions for these bucketed issues. All the meetings were monthly. After October. There were behind closed doors. There was no cameras because we wanted to have these really candid conversations away from the scrutiny of being so frank with one another without having the cameras on our face. There were some discussions that were really, really truthful and really that got a little bit heated at some times. But overall, there was about over 30 individuals that came to these monthly meetings. Some came to all of them, like the health department, and some came to a few. But I think it was a really great experience to get everyone in one room to hash it out. So the 3 issues that we focused on was homelessness, mental health, substance use, and youth truancy. And we broke it down into short-term and long-term. So I tried to send this table out to you guys. I'm gonna send it out later. I was having some technical issues. I was up till 9:30 trying to fix this table. But I'll go over some of the solutions that we came up with. For homelessness short-term, we have, and some of these we already completed too, at least for the city side. One example is using HPD's data from the outdoors ordinance to identify gaps and potential solutions. We have responsible party as a city and working with the Homeless Coalition, which has been done. And to utilize feedback from the Homeless Coalition on a more continuous basis, pretty much collaborate more with the Homeless Coalition. And to support our partners like REACH and Gatekeepers by searching for grants. And the stakeholders that were present at these meetings has also a copy of this. We're actually going to send this back out to them so they can I added a column for target dates. So they will add, timelines for when they're going to complete these solutions where they have been identified as one of those key players. And for homelessness long-term, this was a very long list. And some of the solutions were to have additional shelters. We hear that often a lot. The responsive party is all community partners, not just the city. To also work on reducing barriers to make it possible for housing opportunities to exist. Also rent stabilization efforts to allow the ability for renters to stay housed. And some of these issues too is so complex, like we mentioned with the rent issue last week, that it's going to take more than just our monthly meetings. We're going to have breakout sessions with smaller groups of individuals to focus on like topics like rent. That's one example. And then for mental health, substance abuse, we had our Special Secretary Emily Keller join us for her expertise to help guide us with some solutions. For short term, we have a state requirement for all sober homes to be certified. We did get feedback from Delegate Schindler from the state. That was not favored this time around, but he's going to try to push for that next year. Another one for short term is to include subject matter experts in discussion, including individuals with lived experience. And we're going to create a smaller group focus of that. I know Alva came to us at one point for the comment session to make sure we bring that up. Jeannie from Reach also brought that up. So that's going to be another little small session where we can invite how we can, get those who have lived experience with mental health and things like that to be more involved into our decision making. Another one is a dedicated coordinator to transfer individuals from treatment centers and incarcerations with possibility of using opioid funds. Again, Secretary Keller will be a great resource for when we do talk about that, how to use our opioid money. It was discussed at the stakeholder meeting that there's a lot of work that all these other partners are doing that are, more of like an expert, that we need to get to a room together and figure out how to use the money that we have, at least for the city. And of course, the county will be invited to that too. And long-term for mental health is the City Corp campus into a 24-hour crisis hub. That'll be another topic that'll be discussed in a smaller fashion. And again, the opioid money, restitution funds. We do have update on create a pathway for mental health court. Scott mentioned that to us yesterday, that we have a judge looking into that one. And Gatekeepers was there. Bill Gardner was there for several of the meetings, and he mentioned that he wants to place desks in all of the local jails and prisons for reentry liaison to offer mental health services while they're there. So, and for youth, this is going to be huge because we discussed MV program last week, and having someone hired to help with getting us across the finish line with some of these solutions. One of the initiatives that came out of the stakeholders meeting was the Washington County to Truancy Pilot Program. The responsible parties was our state representatives, and that has been completed. That was actually done this year at the legislation session. Also, we mentioned about the city curfew ordinance that we updated for that to be shared everywhere. I mentioned about your recommendation, Councilwoman Bell, about having the school system share that we changed the ordinance. And so we have an ask or an item to reach out to Aaron Anderson from WCPS, see how we can get that into the school system for their awareness that there is a curfew for children. And we have, again, hire staff for revamping the MV program, have a check mark that that's going to be done. And for long-term, for youth truancy, we have an example of creating additional youth engagement opportunities in the neighborhoods. We have a lot of partners listed for responsible parties, such as Governor Moore's office, Boys and Girls Club, Gatekeepers, Department of Juvenile Social Services. And I just want to give a quick shout out. Again, I had issues with my laptop last night. For those that did come, like I said, the mayor, myself, Councilmember Alshire, you was present for one of those discussions, our city administrator, Delegate Matt Schindler, Kerry Johnson from the Washington County Mental Health Authority, Laura Bishop from the Washington County Health Department, Earl Stoner from the Washington County Health Department, David Washington from the Health Department, Jeannie from REACH, Dr. Sovine from WCPS, our Special Secretary Emily Keller. Our police was present, Chief Kuiper and Captain Lewis, and we had our commissioners present. In the beginning there was Commissioner Jeff Klein and Commissioner John Barr and the County Administrator Michelle Gordon. We had representative from April Delaney's office. We had Tim Fisher from the Washington County Action Council. We had Dr. Alan Twigg from Brookline and Meredith, Carrie Adams from Meredith. We had Senator Quarterman present, Andrew Serafini, and other representatives from Quarterman's office and Department of Juvenile Services, Danielle Saley, Melanie Graves. We had State's Attorney, Gina Cicerone, and Tiffany Rex Road from Washington County Department of Social Services, Jimmy Gosford from Washington County Social Services, and Bill Gartner from Gatekeeper. So thank you for all those who participated and came out monthly, and to look out for your emails for another invite where we're going to break down to smaller sessions, and also this long list of solutions. Again, we'll have a column for target dates to include when we want to do that. So again, we wanted to have smaller sessions where we focus on the issues and come up with solutions instead of just saying we're going to do it, and actually have some accountability. And eventually this list will be published for everyone to view. Did I miss anything, Mayor?
No, I think it's great that we're able to get the community leaders as well as the community, stakeholders in the room and discuss all these issues. I thought it was very productive. That's all I have to add.
And council, if you guys want to be a part of the conversations, we can allow two council members and the mayor. So just let me know and add you to the invite. And I'll share this with you guys, try to share it again.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, everyone could show up, but only 2 can sit up and speak. The rest can sit in the chairs in the back. Is that correct? Or all of us can't be in that room?
Anytime there are 3 elected members of the body present, it's considered a public meeting.
Okay.
Even if you don't join.
Even if you don't join. All right.
Any questions? I know I'm kind of fast, but.
No.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, City Administrator.
Okay. Yelling all day. I want to thank Michelle for the budget presentation again. We have already started on some of the action items that I addressed a couple weeks ago related to the next budget cycle. And as we work our way through that, we will be coming back to this body, both in executive and work session, to talk about where we would like you all to consider strategies moving forward. And that's going to be all through the summer and into the fall. We'd like to get a good start on the next budget with some of these opportunities in place. The end of last week was my first Leadership Maryland conference. Just a tremendous group of public, private, nonprofit executives 50 of us that I got to hang out with. Terrence Moore from Hagerstown is one of the facilitators that just did an amazing job. And I look forward, we toured the Shorebird Stadium down in Delmarva, which just underwent $30 million of additional renovations that was paid for by the Stadium Authority. And I would still hold Meredith Park up against it any day. So that was cool. Next month, we go to Southern Maryland, Patuxent Naval Base, and it's education weekend. So that should be an interesting time too. This weekend, I'm glad I'm around because this is a huge week again. Last week was a great job for the West Virginia Penn State baseball game. Almost 5,000 people in town for that. Downtown was packed, and I hope everyone was able to take advantage of that. Tonight at 7, Shepherd and Frostburg play at Meredith Park. Frostburg, I believe, is one of the top teams in the nation, Division III or Division II. So that should be a good game down there. And also the Boxcars open up tonight in Long Island with their opening home game this Friday night at 6:30. So again, should be another big crowd. Earth Day spring planting is on Saturday from 1 to 4. No, take that back. It's tomorrow, 1 to 4 on Franklin Street. Also, spring planting on Market Walk is this Saturday, 9 to 12. Bartending competition on Potomac Walk, which is at Viva's and Minor Smith Distillery, this Saturday also, 12 to 4. And Hadestown Teen Edition, Saturday and Sunday, being put on by the BISFA students at the Maryland Theater, Saturday at 7:30. And Sunday, matinee at 2:30. So again, this is just the start of what's going to be a jam-packed summer in not only the downtown, but all throughout town. That's it for me.
Councilwoman Burnett.
Just two things. I participated in the final mile walk for the Hub City 100 miler. We walked at City Park. We had a lot of participants again this year. It was a beautiful day outside, and Ryan Smester and I finally figured out a route where we got exactly 1 mile. But thank you to our Parks and Rec department for putting that event on every year. I look forward to doing that. And a quick reminder, as you mentioned, Meredith Park and baseball season. The city did not build Meredith Park. We did not build the stadium. We are not in charge of the operations or the events that takes place. So when we're getting these emails, we are encouraging those to contact the Meredith Park personnel. But the city is happy when there are huge events at the Meredith Park because it brings people in our town, it brings people to our businesses, it gives Hagerstown a good look, and I'm so grateful for that. But please direct your concerns and your feedback to Meredith Park staff. Thank you.
Councilman Alshire.
Like a Meredith Park night. I have 2 comments. The first is, as Scott mentioned, it's good that the activities and the events, are resuming. I did, however, get one communication regarding the parking of delivery and pickup, like large delivery pickup vehicles on, what is that, Baltimore?
On Baltimore Street.
Is it Baltimore? Yeah. There is a pull-off area for that to happen. My only concern is, we have the pedestrian crossing right on the other side of that between, that area and the Housing Authority main entrance. And so if there's a big box truck parked in the travel lane and somebody tries to go around it, that is the main pedestrian crossing. We have a very busy entry and exit point into the Housing Authority and Potomac Towers. So those vehicles could there's plenty of room to get out of the travel lane. I just think that has to happen for safety's sake. The second is, and I don't know this, and I don't know if we're going to be able to tell, but obviously, we're aware, and we've had discussions in the last few weeks about, and I don't know that we've really come up with a solution about the parking of patrons on South Prospect. But I guess for me, I would be, I don't want to say comfortable in not having a solution, but I think I would be more accepting in not having a solution if I had clear awareness that the parking deck that was built is full during that time. In other words, I'd hate to see that the parking deck is like half full and that the other half, of the patrons found parking on those residential streets, because I don't think that's what we envisioned. And I don't think that's how we would want things to work. Not to say I'm trying to force everybody into the parking deck, because there's plenty of private lots around there that are charging as well, no differently than the deck charges. But I don't want that end result to be that then South Prospect becomes that sort of free alternative that dozens of cars take advantage of, to the detriment of South Prospect, which is already very full of single residential and multi-residential, and we'd had this discussion as well, where they're on a hill, so it isn't simple for a residential property like that to simply put parking in their backyard. So I just, I guess that's the difficulty that I'm having. I know we've had this conversation a couple of times, and I don't think we came up with any real good or permanent solution. I don't know that there is an optimal one. I just don't want to know that the parking deck is only so full, but then South Prospect is, overfilled with patrons parking there, because that patron doesn't want to choose the avenue that we've went to great expense to provide for that purpose.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yeah, Saturday, we are having the Jonathan Street cleanup. It's in collaboration with their Neighborhood First meeting. Thank you to Mr. Bender. He went out to the plot of land on Jonathan Street, put the flags up, so we know exactly where that property line is. So thank you to him, and then we mowed, and the grass has grown back, the flags are gone. So he said he would go back out and put the flags up. So I just wanted to thank him for doing that. Good News Hagerstown is providing breakfast for that day, so shout out to them. We still need lunch. And that's it. And Scott, congratulations to your son on his new role with the Flying Boxcars. Is that new? Because I know he was just kind of.
It's not new, but he'll be doing every game this year instead of just the home games, so.
Congratulations to him.
Thanks, I'll tell him.
Oh, I have.
Councilwoman Anderson?
Just a few comments for me, I guess more so, I mentioned a few shout outs. So one was to a gentleman who bumped into me on Public Square. He's new to the area. His son plays for South High. So I told him I would shout him out. He's number 32. I believe your last name is Quarles. I couldn't remember the first name, so forgive me. But he was recommended to move up this way from the Baltimore area. And he has really found a liking into Hagerstown. So we kind of had a small conversation. And outside of that, another woman who was recommended to Hagerstown, it goes by the name of Dr. Monica Balls, I believe. And she is the author of The Birdie Family. And she had an event at the 2nd and Charles in close to your, what is that, the Garland Grove area? Yes, she had an event, and I asked her, I said, what brought you to Hagerstown? Because she had a whole, I mean, it was more than just a book signing. Like, she had people dressed up as mascots. She has a whole show behind it, and it's really to spread, it's really to share a story about her great-grandfather who had autism back in the day, and he was being judged a lot. So she uses the bird as a representation of being unique and different. And I asked her, what brought you all the way here from Woodbridge, Virginia? And she said there was just a lot of talk of Hagerstown, and when she Googled the location, it just seemed like this was the place to be. So throughout the entire week, I want to say, I've heard nothing but, hey, Hagerstown is where it's at. I've heard it in Walmart, I've heard it at Second and Charles, I've heard it on the square, just genuinely walking around the town. And another big thing I kind of want to talk about is someone who reached out to me who is the manager of Trey Kennedy, and he is actually a social media comedian, and he's actually on tour. And they really want to get a showing at the Maryland Theater. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. He's currently on tour at like in 7 other states, but he would love to actually do a show here. Again, his name is Trey Kennedy. And that's all I have.
Councilman Flaherty.
I don't have anything.
I will back up you as well on that, and Scott can reiterate this as well, but there was, during the WVU Penn State game, a lot of out-of-towners come in, and there was a lot of positive feedback in the stadium about our town, as well as a lot of really cool buzz. I don't know if you want to elaborate.
I was not here, but my son was there, and he kind of made a point of trying to eavesdrop on some people as he walked around the concourse, and he said that it was 100%, wow, this is the first time we've been here. This pretty cool place for a ball field, and a pretty good, pretty accessible to pretty much anything they needed. So that was the intent. That's the intent we had 20 years ago, and the intent that is there now. So it seems to be gradually working out.
One more comment.
Go ahead.
I've also been going around to multiple coffee shops and posting it in my stories because I felt like I've been just so loyal to one or two. And the reason I want to share this story with you guys is because when I moved here in 2021, I only had the option of 2 to 3 coffee shops. And it came to my awareness that we had over 12 within downtown Hagerstown, like at least within 5-10 mile radius. And that just had me thinking like, wow, how much have we grown? How much have we changed as a community? That's like 4 or 5 years ago, going from 3 to 12 and counting, because more are coming along, just like speaks volume alone on how much Hagerstown is growing, it is changing, and I want to say that people are starting to realize.
Appreciate it. I have one more thing. Brittany, could you come forward a little bit? Brittany has an ask of us that I would like to let her explain.
So Hagerfest Music and Art Festival is May 2nd. National Mural Awards will have those muralists coming in on Monday, April 27th, so in a few days. We had 4 locations selected. One of those locations, after the artist presented 2 different concepts, we couldn't come to an agreement and the artist didn't have enough time to go back and do another concept. And with budget and time constraints, we have decided, okay, instead of making the artist continuing to go back and she's just out of time, can we find a different location? So that's why I'm here right now. So we have found another location, which is the side of the Elizabeth Hager Center in the central lot. So I just wanted to come before Mayor and Council this evening to see if everyone would be okay with using that location for a new mural.
Yes, definitely.
Great.
You got it.
I will let her know. She'll be excited. So she'll begin working Monday, April 27th, along with the 3 others.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brittany. Yep. All right, that's it for me. Do I get a motion to adjourn? Second? Any discussion on any items tonight? Okay, we're adjourned.